Hey guys, this is Tony and we're back on the bench. And this evening we're going to be getting into doing another little speed service here on an ultralight reel. So we're looking at a Shimano, and this is a AX-ULS Shimano. And this actually came with the original box and documentation, this reel. Came with a whole bunch of other reels that I've been previewing recently. And, we want to dive into this reel and just figure out how to take it apart, clean it, re-lube it, and rebuild it and get it ready to do some fishing. So we're going to start with the simple things here. We're going to take the top cap off. We've got a nice drag stack in there. We're going to take that out in a little bit. Okay, and we've got a ratchet wheel and a washer here, I think. Yeah, it's just kind of stuck on there. Okay, you want to make note of the orientation of these parts. But yeah, this is a nice little reel. It's a ball bearing reel. I'm assuming it's only one. Yeah, I've never worked on this one before. I have a whole slew of other Shimano ultralights, but I've never had this one, and it's my understanding that this is definitely one of the nicer ones that people like, and so I'm glad I finally have it in my arsenal. Plan on taking this fishing soon. Yeah, this is like the perfect little reel to spool up with like 4-pound test or even 2-pound test. When you're fishing small creeks and streams and things like that, it's just perfect for that kind of fishing. Small pond fishing for bluegills or panfish, sunfish. Okay, so we've got the usual things here that we typically see. We've got a washer, thin washer. We got to get that out first. That sits on top of the cam. That is a very thin washer. So yeah, this is a nice design here. We've got a cam, and then we got our main gear, which pops out real easily, which is nice. We're going to clean up all these parts, of course. I'm going to set these down in here for now while we take this apart. Okay, so we got a couple of things here. We've got a screw down here. And we're going to back out. Drive shaft comes out real easily. That's nice. Should be able to take this block out as well. This is probably all original grease in here, but it's very clean actually. There's really nothing wrong in here at all. We're just doing the cleaning basically at this point. And then we've got a set screw up here that has to come out. And I'm going to see if I'm going to luck out with this. Oh, I actually will. It's a 12 millimeter. The last reel I worked on happened to have a 12 mil rotor nut. So I'm going to back that off. And like I said, this is a speed service, and what that means entirely is, we're going to get through the whole reel in this whole video, but I'm going to pause the video a couple of times, mainly to do the cleaning and whatnot. So we've got our rotor, and then we've got our ball bearing right here. Right, so very simple design. It hasn't even been 5 minutes here, and we've got pretty much all the reel taken apart for the most part here. So we're going to back out these 2 screws here, and we're going to pull out. Okay. Well, we almost have it all taken out, but we've got the bearing here, and then this is all part of the anti-reverse here, okay? And this is a pretty typical design of this. And so what you need to do is you need to have your eyes underneath here, and there's a little notch that you got to get this nestled in and lined up just right. And then once you do that, you should be able to pull up gently on this bearing assembly here. And you're not going to get all of it out, but you're going to get the bearing to get exposed at least so that you can pull it out. And once you have the bearing exposed and you can get your pliers on it, you pull that out, and then that's going to loosen up the rest of this assembly so that you can back this out. okay? And that's basically how this works, okay? Now we've got a couple of parts here that we don't want to misplace, okay? And we want to make note of the orientation. Lucky for me, I've got the schematic right next to me here if I need to reference to it. Okay, but this is all part of the anti-reverse system, okay, and it's done internally like that. Okay, so that's it. That's the whole reel, all right? A little over 5 minutes roughly, but not too bad, okay? So we've got these pieces here, and this is meant to mesh together like that. Okay, that brass bushing with that spring that's wrapped around it there, okay? And then we got a ratchet wheel here, okay? And we got a pinion gear there. Okay, so what we're going to do is off camera, I'm going to spend time cleaning up all these parts. While I take apart the drag stack here, I'm just going to talk about how we're going to clean. Okay, so drag stack, WD-40, toothbrushes, things of that sort. Got a metal washer, drag washer, keyed metal washer, and then there's a couple of concave tension washers here. Okay. All right, so yeah, we're going to spend time off camera. I'm just going to pause the video real quick. We're going to clean up all these parts with WD-40, some penetrating oil, some Q-tips, some toothbrushes, maybe some mild degreasers, things like that. Get these parts clean, ready for some reassembly, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we've spent some time cleaning up all of our parts and our housing and whatnot, and we got everything pretty nice and clean for the most part. So we're going to get this reel ready to go back together. Okay, so we're going to start simply here with our spool. All right, and we've cleaned out any dirt or debris in here. With a Q-tip, it's pretty clean. So we're going to go back in the reverse order with those washers. We've got the two concave washers here. We want to make sure that they're going back in the orientation that they went in. They both have quite a bend to them, actually. Okay, and then we've got a keyed washer that goes on top, a drag washer, and a metal washer. And we're going to go back with the snap ring. Like so. Okay, I'm going to put that off to the side now, and we're going to get into the innards here. All right, so we've cleaned up in here. It cleaned up really, really well. All right, we've got a couple of things here. So we're going to start with this pinion gear assembly and take our Penn Precision blue grease, and we're going to go along there, along the gear set, okay? And then we've got a ratchet wheel. It's got to go on top for the anti-reverse. And then we've got this bushing clutch assembly here. Okay, now we need to go back in, the way that we came out, from underneath, basically. You could go on top in this case, but sometimes that's not always the case, depending on what the reel is that you're actually working on. In this case, you can go from the top, I believe. We're going to try it. I don't see any reason why we can't. But you want to make sure that these parts are oriented correctly before you go to put this back in. Actually, no, I think you do have to go in from underneath on this one. There's some where you can get away with it. I don't think this is one of them. So we're going to go in from underneath gently. And sometimes you have to kind of fudge these pieces around a little bit to get them to go back in just right. Okay, so it should look something like this. Okay, then we're going to go back with our bearing. We've cleaned this off with some WD-40. This is a sealed bearing, and so we're just going to top it off with a little bit of reel oil. And we're going to call it a day. Place that back on top. Seat it down. 2 screws. Get those spun up. All right, should look like that. Okay, now we're going to come back to all these parts here. We've got our gear set. And we've taken some 4.0 steel wool to this main drive shaft. We've cleaned it up really well, cleaned up all these parts here as well. So we're going to start taking some blue grease here to this drive shaft, as well as the teeth here on this main gear. Get that started, as well as a little bit of blue grease here at the base where our block is going to ride here, down here at the base. It's got that track that it rides on right there. And we can pop this back in right now. You just want to keep sight of that block. Now, for the next step, we can put our rotor back on. We're going to do just a little bead of oil under here where that spring is underneath. And we're just going to do a light bead of oil here along the bail seams, just to ensure that that bail fires nicely when it's supposed to. Okay, and we're going to slide this back on. And we're going to put our rotor nut back on. You can, in fact, actually do this first before you start building the inside of the reel. Sometimes you can get away with it, sometimes you can't. It just depends. We've got our 12 mil. Just snug it up gently. Don't over tighten it. But you do need to get it so that you can get that set screw back in position, like so. Sometimes these screws can be a real headache. Little tip is you can just take a little bit of grease and that'll hold the screw in position. It's a good tip. Okay, so now we're ready to put our shaft back in, our main drive shaft. A little bit of blue grease on there, and we're going to slide this shaft back down into position. We're going to line up our holes down here at the base. We've got our set screw, a little bead of oil there. Sometimes these small Phillips head screws can be a problem. As you can see, this one is definitely being a problem. Okay, so we got that screw back in there at the base. Okay, and then we've got our cam. We've got that thin washer that rides under the cam. We're going to do a little bit of blue grease here, as well as on this spike for this cam to ride on. And we got to get it lined up just right. So that it lays flat. Okay, and I actually almost made a mistake. This washer, I do believe, goes on top here, as well as these other washers here. There's two others that are, or three, I'm sorry. Or is it four? No, it's actually three other washers right here. So these are shim washers, okay, and they're basically added on in production to make everything flush. So we're going to clean this up real quick. And before we close it up, we're just going to take a little bit more blue grease here to this surface here. Like so. Put the side cap back on. And I don't mind just giving these a little bead of oil, even though they are going into like a graphite frame. It's just good measure to help prevent any rust buildup. But as you can see, in a short period of time, we can take this reel apart, clean it. I don't know, I probably spent about maybe 10 minutes off camera, cleaning the parts maybe. So not too long. It's a small reel. I like the construction of it, the way it goes together, because it's just simple. Okay, and then we're just going to get in here real quick and clean out any residual dirt or anything that might be holding up underneath here. And we're going to hit this with a little bead of oil right there, as well as some blue grease. On the handle shaft. I'm going to go back with that ratchet wheel and shim washer on the top here. This shim washer is designed to ensure that you've got an even line lay. And sometimes there's one washer, sometimes there's multiple washers. It just depends. All right, so our spool's back in position, and we're just going to throw our top cap on, like so. And we're just going to do a light bead of oil on these threads here. And we're going to spin that up. And we're going to get a paper towel, and we're just going to wipe this down, get any old oils or greases off of there. I always like to keep all my ultralight gear super clean and free of any solvents or detergents or anything like that. I don't like that stuff getting on the fishing line and in the water where the fish can smell that stuff, because I find a lot of the time it will spook them. It's not always the case necessarily, but I think it's a good practice. Okay, so anti-reverse is working as it should. Bail's firing real smoothly, so that's great. And we're going to try out our drag and tighten that up a little bit, make sure that that's good. And yeah, it's holding real nice. We're going to back it off when we're not using the reel. So there you have it. That is the Shimano AX-ULS ultralight spinning reel, all serviced up and ready to go. And thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification button. That way you will get all the updates as to when there are new videos coming out. And make sure you stay tuned for some of the ones coming up shortly with more ultralights and light spinning reels. And we'll see you next time.